Welcome to the Volleyball Growth Coach Podcast. My name is Christopher Knowles, and today we are back answering more questions. This is really essentially what the show is going to be entirely, just answering more questions from you guys, just so you guys can get more specific help for what you guys are going through as volleyball players and in your career. If you guys have any questions or comments that come from this podcast or any episode that we do, leave a comment for us in the TikTok comment section of any video that you want, or on Instagram as well, at Volleyball Growth Coach on both platforms. And we will do our best. I will do my best to answer those questions as fast as I can. If you have another teammate or friend you think can really benefit from this show, then share the show with them, because you guys are the way that this gets in the hands of more volleyball players. So share the show, ask any more questions you have in the comment sections on our other platforms, and let's dive straight in like we always do. Question number 1, thoughts on playing 2 different positions for school and club. So there is an amazing player in our community right now that I've been working with for I think a couple months now, who is doing this right now. I think he's a middle in high school and outside in club, or vice versa, and he is doing pretty well at it. I think I haven't really heard any complaints from him, but I think for me personally, my opinion on it is I think it's a good thing to do. One, if you don't really have a position that you're set in stone with, right? Like for me, I'm left-handed, so I was really thrown into the opposite position when I first played volleyball, and it just stuck, right? And it just worked because I'm left-handed. But I've seen that a lot of other players have the battle of, should I be a middle, should I be a lib, should I be an outside? So I think especially when you're first starting out, maybe in your first couple of years of playing volleyball, I would definitely say maybe try both positions, right? Try outside and oppo, try outside and middle and setter, whatever it is, right? Because one, it'll help you develop more skill sets that can help you in every aspect, right? The stuff you learn at middle can still help you as an outside, and vice versa. So it'll really help you get a better overall skill set if you try multiple positions, but then also get you a better understanding of what other positions go through, right? It's easy to criticize a setter until you are a setter and going through what they go through on a daily basis, and in practice and games and things like that. So I think it'll help you also develop a better understanding of like what middles go through, what outsides go through. And then once you, let's say you're an outside and a middle, and then you decide to go all in on outside, you can work with your middles and understand where they're coming from to help them get better as well, because like, hey, I have a year or 2 under my belt of playing middle. So those are my thoughts on it. I don't really have a true, deep opinion on this, but I think it's truly beneficial, especially when you're younger, especially if you're starting out, to just try as many positions as you want, see what clicks, see what works best for you, see what you're most passionate about and what you're the best at, and then just develop off that and build off that and continue to grow and narrow down your skills into one position as you get better and as you get older. But 2 positions I think is great for school and for club, or if you play 2 positions in club, you're kind of versatile, because you can look on really a lot of college rosters and it'll be like middle blocker / outside, or like outside / oppo, right? So your ability to be versatile is going to serve you well down the road, and it also just helps you with you just understanding a lot of what other positions go through. So I think it's a very positive thing. Question number 2, how do I get college coaches to watch me if I can't afford club? That is a really that's a really great question. That's a really great question. And I would say the biggest things, it is a little bit tough because college coaches don't generally watch high school because lots of reasons. But I think the biggest things you would have to get great at, and the biggest avenues that you would probably have to take, is number 1, get good at sending a lot of emails and sending a lot of effective emails. Us at Volleyball Growth Coach, we have seen that 90% of players can't send good emails at all, right? A lot of the entire email sometimes is in the subject line, right? Like the grammar and the wording and the spelling is all over the place in the base of the actual email. So if you can get good at sending emails in today's day and age with how players send emails, it will set you apart just like that, right? Like, for us, when I was like coming out of high school trying to get recruited, it was very hammered home with us that like you have to send good emails, send it professionally. This is what the subject line should look like. This is how you should portray yourself. This is what you should include. And that has very much fell through in how players are taught to send emails today, right? So like, first of all, things you don't want to do is say, hey, my name's this is my schedule for the year, thanks. Like, what is a college coach supposed to do with that, right? What you want to do as a player is alleviate a lot of the problem and issues and like the workload you're putting on them, and make it as simple for them as possible to come see you or watch your film, right? Something for me when I send emails is, hey, my name is this, my name's Christopher Knowles, I'm a 6'7" lefty oppo, this is my experience, these are my accolades, this is what I've done, this is who I've talked to, here's some of my film from last year, here's some of my film from this year, here's this highlight tape I put together for you. By the way, I'm going to be at this tournament, and at this tournament. I'm going to be on this court at this time, this court at this time. All of this is in one email, right? And those are the emails for me that most of the time get answers, right? Sometimes college coaches don't answer, and that's fine, right? But if you just send, hey, my name's this, here's my entire schedule for the entire year, like, you got to figure out when to come see me, you're not going to get an answer and you're not going to get watched, right? So I think, especially if you're not in a club, like, you need to be sending film, you need to be sending highlight videos, you need to be listing vertical, touch, reach, your height, right? Your position, right? Your experience, how long you've been playing, everything, right? Because the more you share about you, the more the better the picture you can give college coaches to create in their mind of who you are and how you play and what you look like. And then that is more you're making yourself more available to answer, right? So that's my first biggest thing, is get better at sending emails, and you will get more answers than other players do. And that's the thing too, is include film, send them video, record your practices, like send them practice highlights and send them full practices, right? Send them your games, send them tournaments, send them literally anything you can to create that picture in their mind of what kind of player you are, right? This is something that I'm doing. I'm literally recording practices, right? So record practices, send them as much video as you possibly can. If you are near a college, right, like for me, for example, I'm near UCSD, right? If I only played high school, right, you don't want to contact out-of-state schools to come watch your high school games. That's probably never going to happen. I could be wrong, though. But if you are in high school, contact all the local colleges, right? Don't just contact D1s, right? JUCO, D3, D2, D1, NAIA, everything. Because if you go to JUCO for a year, right, if you go from high school, right, and you get all the JUCOs in your area to come watch you, right, that's more like possible than D1s, right? Do a year at JUCO, then through JUCO you have even more exposure than you did in high school to D1s, then you can go D1 from there, right? Everyone thinks that the path to D1 has to be high school, D1, graduate, right? Most of the time, that's not the fairy tale story that happens, right? Like, you might have to do a year of JUCO to get more exposure to how you are as a player and then go D1. You might have to go to a D3, then go D1. You might have to go to D3 to a D2 in order to go pro, and then, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different paths than just high school, D1, be a star, graduate, right? That's 1% of athletes' experience playing in college and getting to the college level, right? So I think that's the biggest thing, is high school, you have probably the least amount of exposure compared to players in club, compared to players on semi-pro teams. So get good at sending emails, and email anyone and everyone that's in like a 10-mile radius of you, right? JUCOs, D3s, D2s, D1s, NAIAs, and then pick from that pool of interest in you, whether it's JUCO teams or whether it's D1 teams, and then work from there, right? Do a year of JUCO, do a year of D3. If you can go straight to D1, great, do that, right? But those are my two biggest things. Like, get good at emails and get yourself as much exposure as you can by reaching out to every single college with a volleyball program in a 10-mile radius. Question number 3, any tips to get a faster arm swing as an undersized middle? I feel like the box drills I do in club don't work because my reach is short. Oh, like standing on a box and swinging. Yeah, so I think, yes. So box drills, or any box drill really, isn't going to give you more power. Those are more really for technique, right? Like, especially even for like box jumps for vertical, that's not going to give you an amazing vertical just doing box jumps every day, because there's little to no resistance, right? How you get faster and stronger and bigger is by putting stress and strain and resistance on your body when you're doing a certain movement, right? So if you do box drills with like a weighted glove on, then yeah, maybe. But I think like a lot of players think that, oh, if I just physically just try to keep swinging faster, then it's going to happen like that. It could, yes, over 2 years, but if you want it to happen faster, then I would say do things in the weight room or exercises or things that put resistance on your arm or your legs or your entire body when you're trying to do that movement. That's how you get faster, stronger, and bigger, right? Because box drills alone are not going to make you stronger, right? Like, it'll make you sore, and it might make you stronger if you just do doing box drills every single day for a year is not going to get you as good results as doing certain lifts and trainings in the weight room in 6 months, right? Half a year. So I would say my biggest tips for a faster arm swing is get in the weight room and do certain exercises that help, right? Something that we do is like we'll have a band and we'll tie it up like on a pull-up bar, and you have the band and you basically do like, they're called banded axe chops, but essentially you have your arms fully extended and you're holding the band, and then it's entirely core, right? It's not your arms where you're like doing a tricep workout. It's entirely turning your core, right? Because that's where a lot of the swing power comes from. Just turning your core and your entire torso through your core and your obliques to get a faster like swing like that. Like, I can feel it while I'm doing it right now. I would also say rows, bent over rows, but pulling it to your hip and not to your side. Like, a lot of players, something me included, for 3 years would do rows, and you bring it like basically to the bottom of your chest. That's not what you want. You basically want to bring it up and backwards to your hip, right? Because that's the motion of your arm path when you're swinging. So bent over rows is a good one. The banded axe chops. You can do different variations of rows, like with bands and different things like that. Neutral grip pull-ups are a big one, because that's essentially the same motion, the same muscles to get a arm for when your arms swinging your arm. Neutral grip pull-ups are solid. Yeah, so those are my 3 biggest ones. But my biggest tip is, like, if you want a faster arm swing, if you want to jump higher, if you want to be faster, you have to put resistance on the movements you're trying to do in order to get stronger and faster, quicker, and bigger. And box drills and non-resistance trainings and practices are not going to get the job done compared to other things. What about the swing? Question number 4. What about the swing in the air? I can do it good on the ground, but in the air, even with good timing, I don't generate much power. Do I need to make force with my arm, or does all the power come from the swing speed? So, yes, it is a lot easier to hit a ball really hard when you're just standing on the ground, right? Because, like, when we're in air, right? So when we're on the ground and we're standing, we have the most body control because our feet are on the ground. We're on a stable platform, being the floor, right? So you don't need to control a lot of parts of your body. When you're standing, you just have to swing really hard, right? And so when you're in the air, there's a lot more factors that come into it. You're not on a stable platform. There's not as much balance, right, compared to when you're standing. So you have to have a lot more body control, and that takes away a little bit of the power that you would have normally when you're just swinging on the ground. because you're in air. You have to control your core, you have to control your legs, your body, right? Like, that's taking away energy and power from your swing alone when you're just standing and you don't need to control your core and legs, and you can just hammer balls with your arm, right? So I would say, yes, it is a matter of swing speed, making sure that you're drawing your arm all the way back and then quickly, like a rubber band, like unleashing your arm swing fast. But it's like I said, a matter of body control, right? Like, the more you approach and swing, I think this is one of those things where you truly have to rep it out, of just like getting in the habit and developing, like, I'm not going to get nerdy, but the neural connections in your brain of how to control your body in air is something that needs to be developed. And that's really one of those things that just needs to be repped out, right? Like, things in the weight room and exercises are made and used to enhance certain movements, but if you can't even really control your body in the air to get enough power on the swing, then that's something that needs to truly just be repped out. So I would say, from that question, the two biggest things is make sure that you are working more on approaching and hitting in the air than you are like hitting on a box or just hitting on the floor, because obviously we need to be in air when we're hitting as volleyball players. So get more practice and work of developing that body control by jumping and swinging rather than just hitting while you're standing on the floor. But then also making sure that you're getting your arm all the way back and you're still doing the correct movements when you're in air, right? Like, a lot of us, we can do the disciplined movements when we're just standing on the floor, but when it comes to approaching, some of the stuff flies out the window, right? And I've seen that with players, is like they'll do great disciplined swings when they're standing on the floor, and then when it comes to actually approaching and swinging and hitting, they like their arm swing back and swing forward goes out the window, their footwork goes out the window, all this stuff. So make sure that you have body control and you're developing that, and making sure that you're remembering you're doing the key things like your arm swing, like your footwork, like your approach, timing, and all that stuff when you're approaching and getting your arm back and all that stuff. And then, yes, also swinging quickly and efficiently, but also getting the right contact on the ball that you want to be making. Question number 5, final question of this episode. How can I receive a good float serve? So this is a good question because one of the teams I'm coaching, we actually just worked on this, and something that I realized is players who can't pass a float serve are moving on a T axis or a plus axis, and players who are good at passing float serves are moving on an X axis. And so what I mean by that is, if you're in a ready stance, let's picture that we're in a ready stance, ready to pass, and you're standing in the middle of an X, right? So there's a line going diagonally left and diagonally right to the front, and then the same backwards, right? That is what's going to get you the best passes, especially for float serves. When you're moving on that X axis, you're only moving on that line, right? If you're standing on an X. Because with a float serve, especially with a float serve, we want to cut the ball off, right? We don't want to meet the ball where it's going. We want to beat the ball to where it's going, right? So if it's going to your left, right? If we're on an X-axis, we're taking that step forward into the side, and that momentum and energy is taking us forward to go and cut that ball off and pass it and have control, right? Where we lose control is where we try to meet the ball where it's going and we move to the side, right? Like, we just strictly move to the left rather than forward into the left, right? If we're on an X, right? But if we're moving on a plus axis, right? If we think about now, instead of standing on an X, we're standing on a plus where it's only forward, backward, left, and right. We're not going to have a lot of balance just moving to the left and then trying to like physically turn and drop our shoulder and then pass. That's not going to be consistent because it's physically limited, right? And so that is where most of the time, if it hits your platform and flies behind you, flies backward, right? That's because you move sideways, right? And it's hard to physically drop your shoulder if you're moving to the side, right? And then same thing if you're moving forward, right? If the ball's going in front of you and you just step forward, it's very unbalanced, and that can cause you to drop your shoulder left or right, and that can end up changing the entire pass itself, right? So I would say the best way to receive a good flow serve is make sure that you're moving on an X, right? You're stepping diagonally to the right and forward and cutting that ball off, or to the left, right? And then if it goes behind you, you're not just stepping to the left and trying to like meet it where it's going. You're stepping backwards into the left, diagonally left on that X axis like we're talking about, so that you're opened up, your platform can be away from your body, and now you can not be as physically limited, and you can actually drop your shoulder and create the angle that you want, right? Compared to just moving left, right? Or moving right. So that's my biggest thing with flow serves, is make sure that you're moving like you're standing on an X and not on a plus where it's just left, right, back, forward. You want to be attacking that ball and cutting it off and moving backwards and creating the right angles for yourself. So that is the end of this podcast episode. I hope this really helped you guys. These were some awesome questions for this episode. So thank you guys for putting those questions in the comments. If you have any more questions, put those in the comment sections of our TikTok videos or our Instagram videos. And if you have a friend or a teammate that can really benefit from a show like this, share this episode with them. And we will see you guys next time, and always grow together.